Today, we're going to step into the role of a clinical analyst. We're looking at 3, frankly, terrifying survivor accounts, not just as stories, but as case studies. We want to understand what happens to the human mind when it's pushed to the absolute edge in the middle of nowhere, when the world just stops making sense. This right here is the quote that started it all. This is from our 3rd case study. It's the end of the line, psychologically speaking, a complete and total disconnection from everything, your own body, the passage of time, reality itself. So how on earth does a person get to this point? That's what we're going to break down. All right, here's our roadmap. First, we need to lay down a basic framework for how the mind reacts to this kind of fear. Then we'll walk through our 3 cases, each one showing a different and more intense stage of psychological breakdown. And finally, we'll talk about what happens to us when we're the ones listening to these stories. So before we dive into the actual accounts, we've got to get on the same page. When you're faced with something so terrifying and so bizarre that your brain just can't process it, it basically has 2 main defense modes it can flip into. The first one is called hypervigilance. You can think of this as your brain's threat detection system going into overdrive. It's like every dial gets turned up to 11. You're too connected to everything around you. Every single sound, a leaf falling, a twig snapping, isn't just a sound anymore. It's a predator, it's a threat, and it's coming for you. And then there's the complete opposite reaction, dissociation. If hypervigilance is being too plugged in, dissociation is your brain yanking the plug out of the wall. It's a last-ditch survival tactic. The trauma is so overwhelming, so impossible to handle, that the mind just checks out. It's a protective shutdown to keep the core of you from shattering. So here's the key takeaway. It's a spectrum, you see? On one end, you have this intense outward focus on any and all potential threats. And on the far other end, you have a total internal shutdown, a detachment from your own reality. 2 sides of the same coin of unbearable fear. Now, let's see what that looks like in the real world. Okay, case study number 1. This is where we see that first stage, hypervigilance, begin to take root. We're looking at a subject who is logical, who is experienced, and whose entire understanding of the world is about to be systematically dismantled by things that just shouldn't be possible. Now, it's really important to know who we're dealing with here. This subject is a man in his late 30s, and he is a very experienced solo camper. He knows the woods. This isn't some rookie getting spooked by a squirrel. His expertise is what makes his breakdown so clinically significant. He knows what's normal, and what he's about to experience is anything but. You can see the pressure just build step by step. Night 1, it's just a visual puzzle, a campfire he sees across the valley that just disappears, leaving 0 trace. Weird, but maybe explainable. But then night 2, things get physical. 2 huge trees crash down in dead calm weather from opposite directions. And then comes the sound. A sound he says was like a groan mixed with a growl that just went on and on. The basic rules of the forest are breaking down around him. And this is where it gets really chilling. He goes to check the tree stump in the morning, and the damage, it isn't from a storm. He uses words like gouged, stripped, and chewed, like something impossibly strong just tore it apart. But the final, terrifying piece of evidence were his own things. A bandana and a carabiner taken from his pack during the night and left right there at the scene. This wasn't random. It was a message. He wasn't just in the woods. He was being hunted. All right, let's move on to our 2nd case. Here, the fear isn't about being stalked through the woods. It's about being trapped. We have 2 subjects, locked in an exposed, isolated box, while something outside methodically takes away their sanity. This is a perfect example of escalating shared paranoia. So our subjects this time are 2 guys in their early 20s, and they're out here for fun. They're thrill seekers. They've put themselves 70 feet up in the air in a tiny room with glass walls on all sides. They feel untouchable. And it's that initial confidence, that feeling of being safe up in their perch that's about to be completely and utterly destroyed. Just look at how methodical this is. First, a visual threat. A weird, steady light that doesn't bob or weave like a flashlight. It just glides toward them. Then it stops, right below them, just sitting there, making them feel like rats in a cage. Then the light clicks off, and the audio assault begins. Horrible metallic grinding and banging sounds from the steel frame of the tower itself. And finally, the visual comes back. But this time, it's right outside their window, 70 feet up, a dark shape moving in the night. And this is the moment you see rational thought just shatter. In the middle of this unbearable tension, one of them can't take it anymore, and he yells down at the light. He announces their presence, their fear, their vulnerability to this thing. It's a classic panic response, a totally irrational move that makes everything 100 times worse. When the sun finally came up, they discovered the truth. Those metallic sounds, they weren't just random noises in the dark. They were the sounds of their only way down being unbolted and removed. An entire section of the steel staircase gone. The thing outside wasn't just trying to scare them. It was taking them apart piece by piece. We now come to our final case study. And I have to warn you, this one is different. We're moving beyond psychological games and into a direct, violent, physical assault. This is where we see the mind hit its absolute breaking point and deploy its final, desperate defense, a total break from reality. Our subject is caught in a brutal storm and stumbles upon what seems like a miracle, an old, abandoned cabin. The sense of relief he must have felt, it's unimaginable. He thinks he's found salvation. He thinks he's safe. And that false sense of security is what makes what happens next so incredibly horrific. But as his eyes adjust to the dark, he starts to notice things. Deep scratches all over the inside of the door. The only window is screwed shut from the outside. And the door has a heavy bracket for a padlock, but again, only on the outside. And the dawning horror is clear. This was never a shelter. It was a cage. Just as he makes the decision to run, to take his chances with the storm, rather than stay in this place for one more second, the trap springs. That's it. The time for discovery is over. The assault has begun. And it is absolute chaos. Someone shatters the window, and the room is instantly filled with fire. He runs for the door, but it's being held shut from the outside. He finally manages to shoulder it open, and is immediately tackled to the ground, fighting for his very life. It's not one threat, it's everything, all at once, designed for maximum overload. And there it is, we're back where we started. After being hunted, trapped, burned, and attacked, his brain just couldn't take it anymore. It hit the emergency eject button. The pain, the fear, the horror, it was all too much. So his mind simply disconnected from his body, from time, from all of it. A textbook, full-blown dissociative state. The only way to survive the unsurvivable. So, we've done it. We've looked at the cases, we've applied the labels, hypervigilance, paranoia, dissociation. We've put it all into neat little boxes. But, it doesn't really work. The horror doesn't stay in the box. Because there's a price to pay for just listening, for bearing witness. You don't walk away from this stuff unchanged. And you look at a chart like this, and it all seems so clear, so clinical. Case 1, strange evidence leads to hypervigilance. Case 2, being trapped leads to paranoia. Case 3, a direct attack leads to dissociation. It's a clean, logical progression of trauma. But that logic, that clean summary, it just doesn't capture the feeling, does it? The absolute terror. Because after you've spent time with these stories, after you really tried to put yourself in their shoes, you're left with something that the data can't explain. A question that kind of sticks to you, that follows you into the quiet moments. After all this, do you still feel safe in the silence?